Tonight, you will touch a wall, and the dark will vanish. You won't even think about it. For almost every year that humans have existed, that switch did not exist. When the sun went down, the world simply closed. You couldn't see your own hand in front of your face.
This wasn't a rare event. It was half of every life. For over 300,000 years, each one of your ancestors spent roughly half their existence in near total darkness. No candles for most of it, just the black sky, a scatter of stars, and whatever fire they could keep alive.
So what did they actually do with all those hours? Not a few minutes before sleep. Thousands of hours a year, every year, for longer than our species has had farms or writing. The answer changes what we think about sleep, about storytelling, and about the strange things your own body still does at 3 a.m.
And it all comes down to one thing they learned to control: fire. The oldest solid trace of a tamed fire sits inside Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. Ash, burned bone, and scorched sediment, buried deep in layers about 1 million years old. Scientists confirmed it in 2012. But fire didn't just keep them warm. It rebuilt the entire human night from the ground up.
Before fire, we were like any other ape. When the sun dropped, you climbed into a tree or pressed into a sheltered spot, and you did not move. Moving in the dark meant becoming food. Our eyes are almost useless at night compared to the animals that hunted us.
Leopards, hyenas, ancient wolves. In the dark, they saw everything. And we, almost nothing. For millions of years, night was simply the hours you survived by staying still and hoping. Fire flipped that equation completely, and it flipped it fast.
A campfire throws a ring of light and heat roughly 30 feet across. Inside that ring, predators will not come. Step outside it, and you are back on the menu. Anthropologists who study modern hunter-gatherers have watched this line hold in real time. The fire didn't just warm people, it drew a border around the night.
But once that border existed, something new slipped in. For the first time, humans had hours of safe, awake time after dark. No hunting, no hiding, just people close together with the whole night ahead of them. And what grew in that gap wasn't rest. It was the single most human thing we do. You use it every day and never notice. An anthropologist named Polly Wiesner decided to measure it. She spent years with the Juohansi people of the Kalahari, quietly recording what they talked about and when. Then she sorted the conversations into daytime talk and Firelight Talk. The difference was staggering.
In the daylight, the talk was work, complaints, plans, arguments, who owed what to whom, practical and a little tense. It was the business of staying alive. But after dark, by the fire, the very same people became someone else. Around 80% of Firelight Talk turned into stories.
Stories about distant relatives, about people who had died, about spirits, journeys, and things no one in the group had ever seen. The fire was where they sang, imagined, and traveled outside their own small world. It was the first place the human mind was allowed to wander on purpose. Yet this was never just idle bonding. That firelit hour is where the human operating system was quietly coded. Shared myths, rules of right and wrong, maps of who was related to whom, passed down through tales, empathy for people you would never meet, the imagination that lets you picture a future at all. In the daylight, there was no time for any of it. Survival came first. It was only in the safe dark, with full bellies and nothing to hunt, that the mind was finally free to build. Much of what makes us human was made after sunset by people who simply weren't tired enough to sleep yet.
But it wasn't only talk. By firelight, people sang. They danced. Among the Juohansi, healing dances could run deep into the night, the group clapping and moving around the flames for hours. The fire was theater, church, school, and hospital, all inside one flickering circle. But make no mistake, the dark itself was never cozy. It was terror. Just past the reach of the flames, the night was full of things that could end you, and everyone knew it. If your fire went out before dawn, you did not always wake up.
And we have the proof in bone. In a South African cave called Swartkrans, scientists found a skull of an early human relative with 2 neat holes punched through it. They line up perfectly with the lower fangs of a leopard. A big cat caught it in the dark and dragged it up a tree to eat. And here is the part that lives inside you right now. That fear a child feels in a dark room is not a silly phase, it's the same alarm. It's why an unfamiliar dark room can still make your heart pound for no reason you can name. Your body is scanning for a predator that stopped hunting you a very long time ago.
But the fire always burned low, and here is where it turns personal, because your body still runs the old program every single night without ever asking you. Then a modern doctor got hold of it, gave it a frightening name, and sold you a pill to shut it off. You've been told 8 unbroken hours is the natural human night, and that anything less means you are broken. That is a lie, and it is barely 100 years old.
A historian named Roger Ekekirch spent years buried in old records, diaries, court testimony, medical books, prayer manuals. Across centuries and languages, the same strange phrase kept surfacing. People didn't write about their sleep. They wrote about their first sleep and their second sleep. He found hundreds of these references, and not just in English. The French wrote of premier sommeil, the Italians of primo sonno. This wasn't one culture's quirk. It was the shared human default, hiding in plain sight in the words themselves.
For most of history, humans slept in 2 shifts. They went down not long after dark and slept deeply for a few hours. Then, around midnight, they woke. Not with a jolt, not in distress, just awake for an hour or two, before going back down until dawn.
That gap in the middle had a name. They called it the watch, and it wasn't wasted, broken sleep. It was a room people lived in. Physicians of the time actually recommended it. Prayer books were written specifically for the wakeful hour between the 2 sleeps.
In the watch, people prayed and turned their dreams over while they were still fresh. They tended the fire. They talked quietly with whoever lay beside them. They made love. Some rose and slipped out to visit neighbors who were also awake in the dark. Doctors of the era even taught couples that this hour, rested and unhurried, was the best time to conceive. A whole slice of human life happened in a window we no longer have and no longer even look for.
If this sounds like a tidy story historians invented, it sounded that way to scientists too, until one of them decided to put it to the test on real bodies in real time. In 1992, Thomas Ware took volunteers and dropped them into darkness. 14 hours of night every night for weeks with no artificial light at all. Then he waited to see what their sleep would do.
Their sleep did not stay in one block. Within weeks, it split cleanly in 2, with a stretch of calm, quiet wakefulness in the middle. The exact rhythm from Ekirch's gold records came back on its own. Nobody taught them. Their bodies simply remembered.
And during that middle window, something else happened in the body. Levels of a hormone called prolactin rose and stayed high. It's linked to a deep, still, almost meditative state. The people in the watch weren't lying there anxious. Chemically, they were closer to calm than we usually get all day.
This 2-shift night was normal for thousands of years across cultures that never met. But then, in a single heartbeat of history, it vanished. So what erased a rhythm older than farming itself? Not disease, not some new discovery about sleep. It was light. We lit up the dark, and the old clock inside us quietly died in just a few generations. For most of history, the night simply won. It was too big, too dangerous, too dark to fight. We even kept a word for our surrender. Curfew comes from the old French couvre-feu, cover the fire. A bell rang and everyone put their flames out and gave the night back. For thousands of years, that was the deal. And then, in a blink, we broke it. But then we did something no animal had ever done. We declared war on the dark, and we won. Paris began stringing public lanterns through its streets in the 1660s under an official whose entire job was to push back the night. Gas lamps spread through the cities, and in 1879, the light bulb arrived. And for the first time in the whole history of our species, darkness became optional.
Light let us stay up later and later. The first sleep got pushed back until it collided with the second. The 2 blocks fused into one hard stretch, and the watch was squeezed out entirely. Within a couple of generations, people even stopped having a word for it. And yet, your body still keeps a copy of the old clock. In 2013, a team led by Kenneth Wright ran a simple experiment. They sent people camping for 1 week. No phones, no lamps, no screens, just sunrise and sunset. In 7 days, their internal clocks slid back toward the natural cycle. Their bodies started preparing for sleep about 2 hours earlier, right as the sky went dark, exactly as they would have for most of human history. 1 week outside was enough to undo a lifetime of artificial light.
The old settings were never deleted, they were just buried.
Which brings us to your own bedroom. Think of the last time you woke at 3 a.m., heart steady, mind oddly clear. You checked the clock, and you felt that quiet flash of dread, certain that something in you was malfunctioning, already bracing for a tired tomorrow. But maybe nothing is broken. Maybe at that exact hour, your body did the oldest thing it knows how to do. It opened the watch, right on schedule, the way it did for 1,000 generations. And you, not knowing what it was, lay there, feeling afraid of it. We took that ancient quiet hour and gave it a new name. We call it insomnia now. We treat it like a defect to be fixed, when for most of human history, it was simply the middle of the night, and people knew exactly what to do with it. Today, we meet it with a different tool. We reach for a pill. A whole industry now exists to erase the very gap our ancestors chose to live inside, because no one ever told us it was ours to begin with. So tonight, when you touch the wall and the dark disappears, remember what that switch replaced. A ring of fire. The first stories ever told. 2 sleeps and a waking hour our ancestors treated as sacred. Your body hasn't forgotten any of it. Somewhere under all the light, it is still keeping the watch.